my dear friends, colleagues, and retina specialists all over the world. Welcome to another episode from our daily socio-scientific activity by the Egyptian Vitreoretinal Society around the retina world in 30 days. As we know, this program is mainly focused on hosting the world-renowned stars of medical and surgical retina from different countries, with whom we are going to explore some hidden aspects of the personal and social life. And of course, we're going to discuss a very interesting and a hot topic in the field of medical or surgical retina. In our program, we are exploring different cultures, different schools, from which we get to know and learn from each other. Today, we are landing in one of the countries which is very unique in culture. It is the largest country in South America, and it's also the 5th largest nation in the world, and it's also the longest country in terms of the distance from north to south. Our destination today is in Brazil, and when we speak about Brazil, we have to think about the very unique culture, the great football, and the world records. Having 5 World Cup titles and participating in every World Cup is an achievement that hasn't been achieved by any other national team. Dr. Gustavo Hanning from Brazil is our guest today. Dr. Gustavo is specialized in retina, ocular trauma, and cataract surgery. He has been graduated and received his MBA degree and postgraduate studies in surgical leadership by the Harvard Medical School. He's involved in clinical trials, 3D surgery, and in ophthalmic innovations, and he's currently practicing in the private sector, in the medical and the public sector in Santa Maria, Brazil. Dr. Gustavo, we are glad to have you with us today, and welcome to our episode of this program. So let's start by hitting some of the personal and social aspects in your career and in your life as a vitreoretinal surgeon. Let me ask you some personal questions, and how have you achieved this position that you are achieving now? And let me ask you first about your education. Tell us about your early days in school and college, and how was the family influence in making your decision as becoming a vitreoretinal surgeon?
Hello, Ahmed. Hello, everyone in Egypt. Salam alaikum, as you say there. Thank you for the kind invitation. I feel really honored. I feel very special talking to the Egyptian Retinal Society and to the Egyptian friends and other friends who are also watching us. You have a beautiful culture, a beautiful country, and I love being in touch with you. So we don't have much time, so let's go straight to the subject. Yes. I was raised in a small town, okay, in a village which had around 23,000 people, okay, that's where I was raised. It was close to the border with Argentina, and it was a village which was colonized by Germans as my family. We're going to talk about that later. I was a good student at school. I was not brilliant. I was a good one. And my father is also an ophthalmologist who was the first physician in the family. And he let us really, really free to choose what we wanted to follow or what we wanted to do as a career. And I had many options, but I decided that medicine was the best one because I could gather many different things like economics, informatics, history, all that, and especially handwork, okay? And so I did my med school in Porto Alegre in the Pontifical Catholic University. After that, I was ready. I already knew I wanted to be an ophthalmologist, to follow my father's steps, and also that I wanted to do retina. Because while I did an observership in São Paulo, I was in the 4th or 5th year of med school, I saw a guy called Jorge Mitre doing a vitrectomy. And I fell in love, man. I knew that was going to be my life. When I first saw the light pipe and the vitrectomy handpiece inside the eye moving like a ballet, I was totally decided. After that, I did my first year of residency in Argentina. After that, I did 2 years in Rio de Janeiro. I lived in Copacabana while I was doing my residency, so I cannot complain about it, okay? And after finishing it, as I already knew I wanted to become a retinal surgeon, I wanted to leave my country because I was also searching personal growth. Okay, I wanted to see different cultures, have the challenge to learn a new language because here in Brazil, as you know, we speak Portuguese and most of Latin America speaks Spanish. So I moved 1 year to Venezuela. I had a wonderful boss, Dr. Miguel Molina, and I did a good number of vitrectomies there. After that, I did another year in Argentina with Dr. Gaston Gomez Caride. And the third, as I could say, my third year of fellow was ESASO in Switzerland, okay? And ESASO was really good for me because it was a game changer. I learned a lot. I learned people from many countries, different cultures, and a cutting edge level of vitrectomy, and got in touch with professors, famous professors. Later, we're going to see this in our presentation.
Great. So you had your training in so many different countries. So what was very specific in every period of the training that you received in Argentina? What have you learned in Switzerland? What have you learned in particular? Can you tell us how many cases have you been operating on each week, for example?
Of course. Good question, Ahmed. So very important. In my residency, retina was not very good, but I already knew I wanted to do it. So first, when I moved to Venezuela, okay, it was a clinic which had a private part and a public part. And at that place, in the first year, I haven't done so many. I've done around 100 cases, more or less, okay? I was doing around 8, 10 a month, 2 per week. And the thing is,
week.
Sorry,
2 vitrectomies per week.
Sorry, 8 and every month. Sorry.
Yes.
And after that, I wanted to stay 2 weeks in Venezuela, but since the political situation wasn't the best, I moved to Argentina. In Argentina, I could do 200 in a year. I could do a little bit more. And after that, I returned to Brazil. And the thing is, we already had a clinic, my family, in the public sector. And on that time, the region where we were working, there was no VR surgeon. So I became the only VR surgeon for more or less 3 million people. And during my first 3 years as a practitioner, I was doing around 80 vitrectomies a month, almost 1,000 every year for the first 3 years. And that was the good part because I could learn a lot. In the beginning, I was bringing some friends and some teachers to give me some pearls because, you know, we see some things in the fellow or in the residency, but we don't see everything, right? Most of the challenges, in my opinion, we're going to face during our career. And the ESASO in Switzerland, as I say, was to polish myself and to see more a scientific side, because in the services where I work, it was more focused in operating rather than the scientific publications.
So great. Do you have, who do you remember as your mentor in vitretinal surgery? Who had the greatest impact on your career and your performance in Switzerland, Venezuela, or Brazil?
Actually, Ahmed, I think I was really lucky because I had so many. And since Dr. Mitri, who was the one who inspired me, Dr. Molina in Venezuela, he was a great surgeon. In one day, he was doing like 40 phaco's and 4 or 5 vitrectomies. So we started at 6 a.m. and we were finishing midnight almost every day from Monday to Friday. It was really tough. It was difficult. Sometimes we were almost sleeping in the OR, you know. The following day, we prepared some lecture or something we saw. Oh, what did you see today in the clinic? Oh, I saw a macular hole. Okay, you're going to prepare for tomorrow morning a presentation about macular hole, okay? It was that way. But I learned a lot, okay? Also, my boss in Argentina, Gomez Caride, was amazing. He was a nice guy. He was that guy who could almost hold your hand to show you the right movement and how things should be done. And when I went to Ezazo, there are so many good names like Nikolakopoulos from Greece, which I'm always grateful. He was a guy who opened the doors for me in the international, how can I say, in the international field of retina. But also Stanley Cheng, I met in Ezazo, Carl Kleis, Carlos Mateo, Korkostegui. I have so many good friends from the Ezazo's time that I still keep in touch with them.
That's great, and I've always I know that you're very passionate about attending all the international meetings or the retina meetings, and you don't miss a single meeting. And you've always been submitting your videos and your stuff, and you've won 2 awards in the ASRS Film Festival and the American Academy. Is that right? We're going to discuss that later in the presentations. Let me move now to this fascinating country in Brazil. So the local culture in Brazil is very diversified and is very mixed. You can see the music and the festivals everywhere all over the country. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, that's a big issue, Ahmed. I think we need another Ramadan episode to talk just about that. Because, as you said, Brazil is the 5th biggest country in the world.
Yes.
We have 0.5 million square kilometers, while Europe has 10, so we are almost the size of Europe. And each region has its own culture, music, food, very specific. I live in the southern part, close to Argentina and Uruguay, by the border. And here our culture looks a lot like the Argentinian and Uruguayan culture. We eat barbecue. Probably you have already seen the Brazilian barbecue restaurants around the world. They are born in this region. These are people who left, It was like an exodus. And also we have the mate culture. It's like a green tea. Probably you have already seen it. We have a metallic pump where we blow the hot water. And it's very typical from here because people keep passing it, around them. You're gonna see in the pictures of the presentation. And another thing, of course, every house here has a hole which we call churrasqueira. Churrasco in Portuguese means barbecue. It's the hole in the wall where you make the barbecue, So the thing is, if you don't have a churrasqueira at your home is a problem, Nobody's gonna visit you, nobody home by you, So here also in the southern Brazil, we have a very, very specific culture because we have this influence, specifically because the first colonization, it was around the 1500s, 1600s. It was Portuguese and Spanish people. And later in the 1800s, we had the German immigration and the Italian immigration. So this mixture, this cultural mix is very, very interesting because the Germans and Italians who arrived later, they have incorporated, these habits, and also people who were already here have incorporated things like music and food in their culture. So it's a unique pot we have here.
And you've mentioned in the beginning that you have some German roots, right?
Absolutely, yes, from both sides. I was first educated in German. My mother language is German, When we have family parties, we just speak German. Once I've seen a study that probably German is the second most spoken language in Brazil. We have around 3 million people who can speak or at least understand German, specifically in the southern part of the country. And it's very strong. We also have here the Beer Fest, the Oktoberfest, always in October, of course. In Germany, they do it in September. But the roots here are still strong. Actually, when I with my parents, my brothers, my grandmother, my uncles, aunts, we are most of the time speaking in German.
Yes. All right. So now we can never skip the ultimate passion, football, as the ultimate passion for the Brazilian people. Especially that there are so many alternatives or many variations of football in Brazil, like the street football, the beach football, and foot volleyball. So what does the football represent for the Brazilian people? And we used to get. I used to know from people from Brazil that it's more not like a sport, but it's more like a religion there. So is that true?
Well, that's a long story, but yes, of course, people here love football. Okay, as you said, also indoor football is very strong here, and it's wrong to say a religion, but for many people, yes, you are not wrong. We could say it's a religion for them. Okay, and we have big local rivalries, like here where I am a fan from Grêmio, who was the Libertadores champion in 2017. And it's the team where Ronaldinho started his career, okay? And in 2014, when we had the World Cup here, it was crazy, man. It was really crazy. Streets were crowded. People from Algeria, from Argentina, Nigeria, South Korea, Ecuador. It was the United Nations for football, okay? The World Cup is better than the United Nations. And
of course.
When I was living still in Porto Alegre, I used to go every weekend to the matches in the stadium. Now I'm living in the inner part of the country, so it's a little bit farther. It's more complicated. And of course, this year we have the World Cup in Qatar. But I'm not very optimistic about our team this year. I think there are better teams like France, for example. But of course, when there is World Cup here, everything stops. Nobody works. Everything is closed. People are totally focused in football.
You know that the Brazilian team never missed a World Cup. Yes, they never missed a World Cup. This is a record. It's the only national team that never missed a World Cup, and this is a record on its own. So, yeah. I mean, what have you practiced football? Have you been playing football on the beach or in the streets or anything?
Actually, here, when you are a boy, you see a ball, you go outside, kick the ball. You get your friends. It doesn't matter if it is on the street, on the road, on the grass, on the land. Every place is a place to kick a ball.
Okay.
In school, we used to play, of course, during the physical education classes. It was no physical education. It was football class.
Tell me about the celebrations that you make in Brazil when the Brazil national team wins. How is it like?
The last time it was 2002 when we won the World Cup in Japan against Germany, 2-0, 2 goals from Ronaldo. And it was crazy because actually here people paint the streets and you have flags on the streets. Everything is, for example, when we had they were choosing the groups this year for the World Cup. I think it was last week, right? And the thing is, when people saw that the 3 days Brazil is going to play, it's gonna be in working time. There was a big party because they will be set from the work.
Holidays, so yes.
It's perfect. That's the word. It's a holiday.
Okay. So I'd like to know from you about the Brazilian food. What's so different about the Brazilian cuisine, and can you give us any recommendations about the traditional and local food in Brazil?
So a little bit, as we said before, we have this Argentinian and Uruguayan culture here, the gaucho culture. Probably you have already heard about it. Most is meat, okay. Many places we also eat a lot of lamb, okay. Many places people don't have this culture of eating beef. And it's complicated to talk to Egyptians because you do the best lamb in okay. Also, we have black beans. It's a very typical dish in the whole country, black beans with rice, okay? Mm-hmm. One, it is cheap, it's affordable. Socioeconomics in Brazil, I think, is a little bit like Egypt. We are a poor country. We have a malconcentration of the top of the pyramid, but the base of the pyramid is really big. And it depends a lot from each region, right? For example, if you go to Northeast where it's hotter, they almost every day eat seafood because it's very cheap for them. Where I live, it's the opposite. Beef is cheap and seafood is very expensive. So it depends a lot from the region. And also people eat a lot of fish because we are one of the countries with the biggest number of rivers. I think we
Yes.
just lose for, again, just Russia, and maybe the States have more rivers than us.
And a very long coast.
Yeah, of course. We have 8,000 kilometers of coast.
Yes.
But people eat a lot here river fish, okay? So, and it's nice because you can choose. There is a kind of fish that we call, in English you call probably, what's the name? I think it's arapaima, okay? In Portuguese we say carucu, and it's so good. It's so amazing, this fish, that its texture looks like chicken, okay? And as you say in your language, ahlan fik, you can come here to try.
Great, fantastic. So my final question in this social part will be about your different destinations, your different, your journeys in different conferences. Tell us about the most memorable, the meeting that you visited, and the most close one to your heart.
So meetings, that's a great way to, a big thing to talk about, okay? If I can, I go to almost all the meetings because you have the best guys usually talking, people who I admire, and all these guys are bringing the information for you already prepared in order to make it easier to absorb, okay? It's much easier to see Ahmed talking about retinal detachment or diabetic PVR, then grab an article and read it, okay? Also, I love traveling, so I've already been to Egypt with my family, and I love the place, not yet for a meeting, probably maybe in the future I would love to. And I usually go to the Euretina and the European Society Cataract. And also, I always try to go to the American Academy and also the ASRS. When we talk about scientific level, okay, for me, the ASRS is the best one. It's a very expensive meeting, okay, we can deny that. The attendance, the registration is high, at least for us, because of the exchange. Now, US dollar and the Brazilian currency, the Brazilian real, is more or less 5-1. But the level that they have there, it's amazing. Also in Brazil, we have also very good meetings. And I think that's the best part of ophthalmology, because we are different. We are I hope other physicians don't see us or don't listen to us. We are the special ones from the medicine, okay?
And that's true, yes.
Because we work with high level of technology, we are more chilled. We are not like people who work with OBGYN or traumatology. They are always under stress. Of course, when you work with vision, with patients who might lose their sight, it's really complicated. We also have a lot of pressure on our shoulders. But going to meetings is also a great opportunity to see friends from overseas, and that's, for me, is the best part of the meetings.
All right, great. So now we've reached the end of our first part in this episode, the social and the personal part. And we're going to be off for a short break, and we'll come back with the second part, or the scientific part of our episode tonight. So stay tuned. Again to the second part of our episode tonight, and specifically the scientific part. And today's topic is very different because our guest is very fond of ophthalmic innovations and surgical improvisation inside the OR. And actually, this is his topic of presentation tonight. Dr. Gustavo will show us 2 videos about various situations and difficulties that he faced inside the OR, and how he managed to find non-traditional solutions for these problems. His first video was a winner in the ASRS Film Festival 2021, and it was about using the very special technique, the grinder technique, in order to remove a very sticky silicone oil. And the second video is also an award winner. It was an award, it received the video winner in American Academy of Ophthalmology 2018 pre-retina meeting, and it was about failure of fluid air exchange during vitrectomy. So, Dr. Gustavo, could you put on your videos, please, and show us the two videos?
Few weeks ago, this patient had undergone a combined phaco-vitrectomy due to a blunt trauma that had induced cornea edema, iris sphincter damage, cataract, and retina detachment. Now he returns to remove the emulsified silicone oil. After removing it all, we are faced by a sticky silicone oil bubble, since the opacified media in the prior surgery didn't allow to complete the procedure. Sticky oil happens when a longer-term silicone oil tamponade mixes with remnant perfluorocarbon, producing an extremely viscous and dense liquid solution that is difficult to be removed. The surgeon might solve it by aspirating the inferior part of the bubble, where the PFO is located, but sometimes that is quite impossible. So, we present an alternative solution, which was found in the oldest sport competition in the world, the America's Cup. Presenting this year the mighty AC-75, a sailing yacht capable to reach 60 miles per hour, we will talk about the crew members who inspired our technique, the grinders. While trimmers are responsible for the boat sail and trimming the loop to get the boat as fast as possible, grinders are at max heart rate during 25 minutes. These guys are responsible for moving the winches, moving the hydraulic pumps, and making sure the boat has enough power to sail around the course at max speed. Here we reproduce the grinder's movements in order to create a centrifugation process inside the sticky oil bubble to agglutinate the PFO droplets. Once they form a bigger bubble, it will be easier to aspirate them, like here, where we can clearly see the perfluorocarbon liquid leaving the silicone. Or like here, where we can see gravity acting on the mixture, and because of its weight, the PFO leaves the silicone oil bubble. Now that the PFO has fallen, the silicone bubble is again lighter than BSS and floats, allowing the surgeon to make a complete silicone oil removal. Despite sticky oil cases are not very common, some months later we had a similar case where we had the chance to prove our theory. This time the sticky bubble was much bigger and the PFO wasn't very clear, but after a few grinds the PFO droplets started to agglutinate again and to become visible. After the PFO aspiration, the silicone oil came up and it could be completely removed. Oops, but watch it. We have a small portion of sticky oil really stick to the retina. So we gently aspirate the PFO first and then, with much attention, we aspirate the silicone part. Since it didn't work, we tried to use the grinder technique on it to see if we could release it from the retina and watch out what happened. Now yes, the silicone oil could be completely aspirated. Remember that safety is always our number one concern, so you must be very careful when using the grinder technique at the macula, since it shouldn't be touched. Be gentle and delicate. Back to our first case, see how the presence of PFO provoked retinal inflammation. The posterior hyaloid that we couldn't see is now thickened and more adhered. So let's treat what we were not able to do at the first surgery. I hope this film might help you all. Thanks for your attention. And while I finish here, I wish you all a nice sailing. You are just about to finish your vitrectomy. The periphery is shaved and laser has been done. So let's perform the fluid air exchange and go home. But oops, the air pressure is 0. That means your air pump is not working. So you cannot finish the surgery. And as this problem is not enough, the closest technical assistance is almost a day away from where you are working. Then you have an idea. Let's use the wall's oxygen. But here comes the issue. How can we measure the air pressure? So I'll ask the audience to help me considering the manometer we have in front of us. How many millimeters of mercury is 1 kilogram per square centimeter? If you said A, B, C or D, you are wrong. The right answer is this. Are you sure you want to use that watch at the wall? It doesn't seem very precise or safe. So we need a tool inside the OP room that could help us to manage the air pressure more precisely. And there is no better option if your vitrectomy machine is not working than the anesthesia cart. Here you can see that we have the oxygen tubing installed with a 3-way stopcock in order to leave the original tubing to avoid hypoxia and add a second one which will substitute the compromised air pump. Everything is set, but we still don't know how to measure and control the air pressure. The solution was invented by Samuel von Bosch in 1881. It is easy besides being very precise. It is called sphygmomanometer. We connect it to the tubing and here we use the O2 humidifier to adjust the pressure we want as a target. And last but not least, don't forget to connect the air filter between the tubes in order to deliver clean air into the eye. After all, even in extreme situations, patient safety is our number one concern. Happy fluid air exchange and thank you all for the time and attention.
Very nice, very entertaining and great music. Thank you, Gustavo, for the very interesting videos and brilliant ideas. So let me start the questions now with the second video actually, which is the grinder technique. How did you what was your rationale behind the idea, or how did you come up with this idea when you faced this situation in heavy or sticky silicone oil during silicone oil removal?
Thank you for the kind words, Ahmed. So, thank you for the kind words, Ahmed. So the thing is, in the public system in Brazil, you have to be very creative, right? Because you don't have all the resources or all the money you would like to have. I don't know how it is in your country, but probably I think it's more or less the same. Sometimes you have to create some things. The thing is, when I started in ophthalmology, I was just interested in retina, okay? I didn't want to know about cataract. So as long as patients with cataract complications started to come to me, I started to think that I should also perform cataract surgery because maybe I would avoid those problems. And when I started, usually I was doing the irrigation aspiration by manually, okay? And sometimes when the cortex was too thick, I had some difficulties, and I was also afraid of making a posterior capsule rupture. So to make it easier, I started to roll the irrigation handpiece around the aspiration handpiece to make it I was like polishing each other. And this was a way that I saw that was working. So the day I had this case, I had I think it's Densiron, the name from Goiter, right? Which
yes.
Used to dissolve them. Here is not available. and I was starting to get upset and tired because I was aspirating. There wasn't a big bubble under the silicone oil bubble. And then I remembered that both PFO as silicone, they like to agglutinate, okay? So I started to do the movement to see if I could promote or provoke an agglutination. And I was happy that my idea worked. Otherwise, I will be still nowadays trying to remove that bubble.
So during the silicone oil removal, how would you suspect that this is a very sticky bubble? What's the behavior of a heavy silicone oil sticky bubble during silicone oil removal?
Oh, that's a very good question, especially when you are starting. It's difficult because you don't know it's coming, right? Mm-hmm. So to perform the silicone oil removal normally, and suddenly you see a bubble that's not coming out. Sometimes you go with the vitrectom, and if it is a 1000 centistokes, you might be lucky with 23 gauge to aspire it, okay? But these bubbles, they are not transparent. As you saw, it wasn't neither translucent, it was
cloudy.
It was cloudy. Yes. And so you try to aspirate, it's not coming. You increase aspiration, it's not coming. You increase the pressure, it's not coming. And it doesn't float, it stays on the back of the eye. Then you realize it is a sticky oil or a heavy oil bubble.
So you go inside the bubble itself with two instruments and do this grinder technique. How fast do you go? And do you go? You have to go inside the bubble itself, deep inside the bubble, or just on the surface? And how fast and for how long?
Oh, very good. Excellent question. Okay. First thing, you don't need special instruments. You use the light pipe and the vitrectom handpiece. Okay. You go inside the bubble and you start to make this movement to roll it. Okay. And suddenly, in one of the sides, usually your side because it's better to see, you try to make half of the movement inside the bubble and half of the movement outside the bubble. So you bring the PFO out of the bubble. Otherwise, it's going to stay inside the bubble. So if you bring it out, there is an agglutination and they start to bind also in the outer part of the bubble. How many movements? Depends, my friend. When you see the bubble on the lower part, try to aspirate it, or as in the case we saw in the video in the first surgery, the bubble itself of PFCL fall lonely.
So the PFCL bubble separates and gets to the lower part of the very big sticky oil. It goes by gravity, you said, and you have to aspirate it with the vitrector. Then you go and remove the silicone oil itself.
Because when you get the PFCL out, automatically the silicone bubble will.
You can easily aspirate it. Yes. So sometimes these sticky bubbles are very closely adherent to the retinal surface, and sometimes they are subretinal in recurrent cases because these recurrent cases are full of complications, and you can see the silicone oil and the PFCO going beneath the retina. So how can you apply the same technique to remove these bubbles from underneath the retina and from the retinal surface, or is it dangerous, or is it how would you consider it safe enough to perform this technique?
So the first thing here about this video, okay, sticky silicone oil is very uncommon. So we don't have a large experience to develop it more. To have sticky oil underneath the retina, it's even more rare to happen, okay? It depends from the case. It depends, in my opinion, from the surgeon's experience. Sometimes you have to detach the whole retina to absorb it. It's a very and how can I say polemic maneuver, okay? Or you can try just with the PFCL over the retina, but sometimes it doesn't work. So you'll have to watch case to case, and I encourage other colleagues to try the technique when they haven't to publish it, so we can start discussing this technique and these occasions because they are not very frequent.
All right, great. So let's move to the second video, or actually the fluid air exchange, failure of fluid air exchange during vitrectomy. Let me ask you, have you really faced this in real time, in real surgery? that you've been switching to the fluid air exchange during a vitrectomy, and there was a failure of the pump, and you had to do all these maneuvers in order to connect again and restore the eye pressure using this maneuver. And how long did it take you to set all these, to make all these settings and restore the fluid air exchange again?
It's funny, Ahmed, because this is the first question everybody makes when they see this video, okay? So do it in 2 minutes. Of course, I didn't do it in 2 minutes because the video is edited, okay? But the thing is, I finished the surgery. It wasn't a very difficult vitrectomy. And it's time to perform the fluid air exchange. When I turn the air pump on, the machine shows me a message saying that the air pump didn't have pressure. So I check the air cylinder, I go to the cylinder, it's okay, I have enough air, it should be working. So I turn it off, I turn it on again, and nothing. It says that the pressure is 0. So I concluded that the air pump was not working. Which were the solutions? I could try injecting with a 60 cc, but it doesn't have enough pressure, and you have to aspire at the same time, and you must have air entering the whole time. And we know, people who work with retina, that you need lots of air to perform that, okay? I was lucky, and so 2 things very important here. Have a good team with you, a nurse, the person who does instrumentation, and the anesthesiologist. So the first idea that I had, okay, we need an air source. I look to the wall of every so OR has an air supply on the wall, okay? I didn't want oxygen because I know that oxygen absorbs too fast, so I went to regular air, pressured air, compressed air. The thing is, the watch was too strong because when you open it, you know the noise. It's really big, so it would explode the eye. I couldn't do it, but I remember and I saw that there was air coming from the anesthesia cart to the patient's nose, and the pressure isn't that high. Okay, so we showed the beginning of the video the whole procedure to explain it to make it easier. Okay, but actually in this case, we just put a 3-way on the oxygen which was going to the patient's nose, and we grab another one with compressed air, okay? And this compressed air with filter, because of course there is a lot of dirt in these machines, in the walls, okay? You know, you don't know what kind of bacteria or dirt you have inside with the filter. And then we were afraid to connect it straight to the eye again because we were afraid to having an exploded eye. So my anesthesiologist is a guy who studied geology, and he knows a lot of things about pressure engineering, and he had the idea to hold the watch of this sphygmomanometer, and then we connected it, and I wanted it more or less 35, 40 mercury millimeters. And then after knowing the pressure which was coming out, then we connected to the air, and then we could finish the surgery. What was really funny about it, okay, and that's the third thing I'm gonna say about this video. We all should know the old techniques, not just new things. I had many older or more experienced colleagues coming to me and talking about the fish bubbler that they used to use in the past, which they use in aquariums to oxygen the water for the fish. And I had never heard about it before. Now I have an air bubbler on my OR, on my surgical room, because if it happens again, I'll just connect the fish bubbler and it's solved. So that was the funny part, having many colleagues talking about it.
Does it happen so frequently with you in the OR? I mean,
No.
It's something...
I want it to never happen again, but
I think it's something very rare. I mean, it's a very rare situation that you can face maybe once in a lifetime, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
The thing, probably you face the same situation. Okay, you have patients traveling 4 or 5 hours in the public system, and they have just that chance. I could not say to the look, I'm sorry, the air pump is not working, you have to go. No, I had to solve it. That's our mission.
Great. I also have another concern about the sterilization. I mean, the air going inside the eye. How to make sure that this is sterile air, it's maintaining the aseptic conditions.
Okay, I had to take the chances, right, Ahmed? Of course, there was a risk. It was the best shot I had with the air filter, and of course, I was under risk. Even that we use antibiotics, draw eye drops, and all of that, there was a risk of infection, of course.
Yes, fantastic. Really great ideas, and I enjoyed so much your videos and your ideas and your innovations. And I'm sure that you have so many other things to show, but for the sake of time, maybe you can make it on another time. I know that you always post some videos about some tricks and ideas in the OR. We're gonna have another chance to see that later on. And now we come to the end of our episode for tonight. I really enjoyed everything. I enjoyed the videos and the ideas. Thank you, Gustavo, for being with us and for sharing your experience and brilliant ideas. And I would like to thank also all of our audience for watching and for staying with us. Please stay tuned for more hot topics in our series of the Around Retina and Around Retina World in 30 days. Have a good night.